Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of the Mindful Mentality Podcast. As you guys might well know by now, I'm your co-host, Mr. Caleb Rosenberg. I'm actually not joined by my two partners in crime. They're actually both out of the country. One's in the DR and one's in Mexico. So good for them, man. Good for them. Especially at the time that we're in right now, just going out and enjoying time with their families, living it up, honestly. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is Mindful Mentality, where we just like to shed light on new perspectives, new mindsets, mindset tips and tricks. We bring on different guests who have accomplished great things in their lives, whether it's business ownership, entrepreneurship, in the workplace, or just in their personal lives with their personal development journeys. So they come on, share their stories, and we kind of just go over, things that they've gone through, things that help them really power through their situations, and then we share our experiences as well. So, yeah, we're glad to have you guys here. For all of our loyal listeners, we very much appreciate you guys, 100%. Those who are showing love on, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I mean, we're all over. Even the direct messages or the text messages that I get from people who I haven't talked to in a while. I mean, I appreciate that very much so that you guys are listening and taking it to heart. Really put a lot of time and energy into this podcast, as you know, all the way back from season one. If you guys have ever heard or seen that, we've upgraded quite a bit. Mic quality, camera quality, and it's just going to continue to get better and better. So let's dive right in, man. As you guys can kind of see, the title of today's episode being "How We Lost Everything." So I kind of touched on that last week's episode, some of the different things that we've gone through as of lately and as of this year. And I want to walk everybody through kind of how we got to that point, really the full picture of what happened, and honestly, just share kind of full transparency behind the scenes. Not a lot of people show you the down periods or the things that they're actively going through. And being a mindset podcast, I figured what better opportunity to share with our listeners, to share with our viewers, um, that, hey, we go through things too, you know, whether it's loss, whether it's financial loss, loss of a family member. I mean, we're still human beings. So I want to be able to humanize this podcast and not make it sound like we're above everybody. We have everything figured out because trust me, we do not have it figured out. Not even close. Right. So throughout this episode, this is really just going to be our experience, things that we're actively doing to power through it, to make things better. Because we're still going through it, man. Honestly, we're still going through a tough time right now, but finally starting to get on that uphill climb. So things are looking for the better. So, and that brings me to my first point: is you got to keep a strong mindset. Now, before we dive into this whole story, throughout the period of this podcast, I'm going to kind of highlight some different things that I want you to really take note of. I want you to really let it sink in and kind of get ingrained into your brain that when you're going through a tough time, whether it's loss, financial struggles, or business struggles, or personal struggles of any sort, a lot of the things that I talk about today are going to help you get through it. I can promise you. So, sit back, grab a pen if you need to, but just kind of listen in and take things in, man. So that being said, let's dive right in. So back to um kind of the story, right? So beginning of the year, as I kind of touched on, we started a new thing with government contracting for Trusted, one of our businesses, and it was this free phone program, ACP program. Great program. If you guys, have any questions or want to get into it, y'all can always hit me in the DM as well. But we started out at the beginning of the year, with just myself, Daniel, and Will, three-man team, out there every single day, handing out these devices, um, 7 days a week. Sometimes getting up as early as 8:30, being out there till sometimes as late as 9:30, 10 o'clock, just giving out these free devices. and obviously we're contracted through this government program, so we get paid on the back end, but it's completely free for the consumer. So 7 days a week without fail, out there every single day, right? Building this from the ground up. So, things were a struggle at first. We couldn't get the right amount of supply, so every single week we kept running out of devices, which stunted our growth in the beginning. And then we finally got on a good level with the supplier, and they were able to trust us. So it got to a point where just Daniel and myself out there 7 days a week, we were doing anywhere from 300 to 400 devices a week, which in this game is like for two people, they started to get um not the supplier, but the kind of head contract basically started to get suspicious and put eyes on us. And then we had an ordeal where they thought that we were frauding or scamming the system because we were doing so many devices and it was just two of us. And they can obviously see that everything's tracked. So we had an ordeal. They came in, like basically audited us, and Daniel and I were using. So I had my iPad, my phone, and Daniel had his phone, and sometimes we had another device, right? We'd be switching off with my iPad because that's how we were doing so many, right? And long story short, that's a very big no-go because there's facial recognition and everybody has their own login. So it looked like I was either using Daniel's at a time or Daniel was using my login. And so they count that as like, I can't remember the exact term, but they found like 140 some odd cases on Daniel's account and then like 40 some cases on mine. Then they shut down both of our accounts. Can't do any phones. We just went from doing well over 20 grand a month just by us, no overhead expenses. So this is basically pure net profit, right? We're just literally killing it. And then one day I get a call from the supplier. Both of your codes are turned off. You cannot do any more phones, not you or Daniel. And Will was kind of like the one who signed the contract in the first place, so he couldn't do phones very much, or it would jeopardize the contract. So again, long story short, whole thing gets shut down. This was probably back in June, June, maybe a little bit earlier. I can't remember exactly, but whole thing gets shut down. Had to hire. So we hire, a bunch of our close people, hire a couple others that we met doing the phones, um, and then we just skyrocketed because we had a process, obviously, and then once we found out that we had to do it a certain way, we just really dialed in, right? So all of a sudden we dial it in. There's not a single week where we're doing less than like 500 plus a week. And it gets to a point where all of a sudden we get 30K a month. Okay, 50K a month. Okay, 60K a month. Okay, 65K a month. It's like left and right. We're just scaling this thing. And things are going fantastic, man. I'm making great money. Daniel's making great money. Will's making great money. Our team is making good money. And so we started to have an issue where people weren't showing up for work, or they were showing up when they chose to. And we had a team meeting. This is the first part where I messed up. Had a team meeting, and we actually like changed the pay structure. Long story short, that rubbed some people the wrong way. People started leaving, and left and right. As people started leaving, then there's no phones being distributed. So it was all right at first because we were still stable and we were still making great money. And then we tried to open an office in Houston, and that just went terrible, 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 terrible. Spent thousands of dollars to put a few team members, Airbnb, food, get our team down there, all that good stuff. Just it went so bad. The entire process was different. The verification system was completely different than Minnesota. So it just went terrible. Long story short, barely just did any phones. I mean, we lost money going there. We never made a profit and didn't even break even, not even close. I don't even think we did more than like 100 devices in the few weeks that we were there, which is just terrible when you're used to doing like well over 500 every single week, right? Um, so had to bring the team back. The team that went there didn't, they kind of rubbed them the wrong way. Understood, perfectly understandable. Meanwhile, in that time period, I had moved to Texas, So I moved across the country. We hired, a couple people to be our managers, and then everything just went downhill, man. Like as soon as it was a combination of the pay structure and then leaving for Texas, it was like everything just caught on fire at that point. Like the Texas thing went bad. Our managers were having trouble getting people to show up for work. And then it almost felt like in the matter of a week that almost like everybody quit besides like two people. And we had a team well over 10 people doing this consistently every single day. So when you have that and then you go to like nothing, we had a lot of inventory too. Even with this, when you have a lot of inventory, basically you have to pay for the inventory. It's $45 a device. We had a lot of inventory. So then keep in mind, Texas goes terrible. At the same time, people are quitting left and right. At the same time, we're getting chargebacks, not small amounts. These are $6,000 one week, $4,000 the next week, $2,000 the next week. Okay, then another, $6,000 charge. It just was like thousands of dollars with the chargebacks, week after week after week. Every single Friday, it was a chargeback of thousands of dollars when people are also not working, so we're not generating the same amount of revenue. Keep in mind, I have a team of well over 10 virtual assistants as well. So now, things are just going bad, bad, bad. So then comes the business credit thing, right? Business credit scam, as you guys might not know, we got hit for, I think it was like 12,000. Yeah, I think it was like 12,000 and some change. Basically, they told us we had to put an insurance premium on this credit line. Um, and long story short, they just took 12 grand from us, right? So that sucked. This is all at the exact same time. Then we pay for a $10,000 coaching program that is kind of like guaranteeing us for our software, our digital suite, as you guys might know. Pay for the $10,000 coaching program, not knowing that the entire strategy was based off of Facebook ads, and then there were some other things kind of left out. Nothing bad to say. I'm not even gonna mention their name, because I have nothing bad to say. I know the strategy will work, but there were some things that I wish would have been explained to somebody who's never ran Facebook ads before. It was a little frustrating after, like, a few weeks go by, like, it was, like, 2 weeks went by of me running some ads, and then some people, like, other students tell me some very critical pieces of information. It's a little bit frustrating after I just spent $10,000. And the best piece of advice that I got on some of these ads were like, "Oh, you did it wrong." It's like, "Paid you $10,000 just to tell me that I did it wrong?" Alright, thanks. So, that was frustrating. And again, this is just all happening at the exact same time. The employees leaving, we have people on payroll, a lot of them. We have a ton of overhead now because we're trying to, as we kind of had stabilized the phones at the time of making these other decisions, like getting the coaching program and, hiring more virtual assistants, getting all these systems in place, doing all these things, you know, I make the kind of analogy when when you have it, it's easy to pay for, you know, 20, 25 grand a month in overhead when you're on the verge of, like, scaling up well over 100,000 a month, right? But when you're not, it's hard to have those same expenses. So, we have all the same expenses, but not the same amount of income coming in. As you can kinda put 2 and 2 together, that did not go well whatsoever. We're doing everything that we can to keep afloat. We're trying all these different marketing things. We're trying to get people to work. We're trying to hire more people. Hiring's not working. We put out all these ads for hiring folks. They're not following through. I mean, it just was like when it rains, it pours, right? And the first thing that I did wrong was I fell victim to thinking that things were like the storm was going to pass without me really changing anything. It wasn't that I wasn't putting in work, I wasn't doing anything. I was still working, still doing what I needed to be doing, but I didn't change anything, and that's what had led me to that position in the first place. That's the first thing I wanna really highlight. I know it's about 15 minutes in our first point, but when things are going south, don't look to just be doing to do the same exact thing that you were doing that led you to the position that you're in currently, right? Obviously, if something's working, double down, but when things aren't working, look to adapt. And I really wish that I would have adapted a lot sooner and changed up a lot quicker than I had. It took me probably like a good, I want to say, month or two. Yeah, it took me about a month and a half, 2 months to finally get it through my thick skull as I was watching everything burn down in front of my face. Like actively, it probably took less than 45 days for us to go, like I said, scaling well over 100,000 a month to literally $0. Just things coming out of the account. All of a sudden, accounts start going negative, and we're just trying to stay afloat, man. And it was honestly, I have never been on that big of a roller coaster in my entire life, where I literally felt like, dude, put in 3 years of my life, I feel like things finally happened, and I finally got to the level that I've been dreaming of for so long, and to have it kinda all vanish in front of my eyes in less than 45 days was beyond me, honestly. I sometimes I still have a tough time wrapping my head around it, because anybody I tell, they're all like, "Dude, I can't believe that happened." I'm like, "Yeah, man. You you and me both." Like, it's just one of them things too where you not only have to have mental toughness, but you have to be willing to get back in the ring and continue to fight. See, there was probably about a week or 2 where I really felt, like, bad about myself, bad for myself, bad about the situation, bad for all the people that I had to let go, you know, all the debt that we've racked up on whether it's personal credit, business credit. I mean, dude, like, when I tell you everything that went wrong, it literally couldn't and then I actually got COVID too, and, like, I've had COVID before, but it wasn't like this. And that might have been partially because of, like, the mindset I was already in. I already wasn't in a good headspace. So I'm pretty confident that because of that was a good addition or fuel to the fire as to why I had, like, a pretty bad case of COVID. Like, especially for the first week, dude, I've never felt like that or that felt that garbage ever. And then to have that as all this other stuff is just going right down the toilet, dude, it was tough. It was the toughest time. I've never felt so alone, so helpless, hopeless. Um, dude, I just felt like nothing. Like, I honestly felt nothing at a certain point. Like, there was about a week where I felt, like, really shitty. And then there was another week where I felt absolutely nothing. I felt no joy. I felt no sadness. I just felt so dull, like there's nothing that I can do. And that was kind of the second mistake that I had was letting myself fall victim to the situation. I'm not gonna say that I should have just brushed it off and been like, "Oh, it's all good," but like I should have been, especially having a podcast about mindset. I should have been more mindful and continued to plug my brain and my mind with positive energy, positive thoughts, and possibilities because it came to a point where like I all this negativity made me stop seeing like all the possibilities, right? And the opportunity around me. That was kind of my biggest thing. It's like I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel because I was already in such a negative mind space. Everything else around me just looked so dark and so negative. Now, the flip side of that, right? I was also supposed to move, and all this other stuff. I moved to Texas, um, but it's just, dude, like one thing after the next. Like I had to push my move back when I was still paying for, I'd already set up electricity and renter's insurance, and I'm still to this day like can't wrap my head around like I was paying for these things without even living there because I also was like traveling a bunch, right? Like I was in Texas for when I moved here. I was here for about 2 weeks, and then I got on a plane, came back for a little bit, got right back on a plane. It was just like back and forth, getting back on an airplane, and so that was kind of like a little bit off topic, but again, having mental toughness and being positive with yourself goes a long way, man. And having the right people around you to not only like, for example, my friends were phenomenal, like continuing to preach positivity to me. I could not thank them enough, right? But then there was groups, like business owner groups that I'm in that confirmed for me, which was a big thing, that this is a very normal thing. Like going through things like this as a business owner, as an entrepreneur is very normal. And it was just, I cannot explain to you hearing people that are on the same journey as you who are chasing the same goals and are doing the things that you want to be doing. I cannot explain to you how refreshing and how much of a weight was lifted off my shoulders hearing that all the people in the group have been through the same things. They're either A, going through it currently or we're going through it, at some point in time, and that it's a part of the process, right? Just, dude, like the weight on my shoulders was just lifted, and I was like, I really can do this. Like, I can make it through this time. And man, I cannot be more grateful for the people that I've been around, the connections I've made, the people who are willing to pour information into me, man, changed my life, honestly. Like, I know I would have figured it out at some point, or I would have, you know, got back on track and felt like myself again, but it wouldn't have been as quick as it was without the people around me. So I want to highlight that very much so. You got to keep good people around you and the right people as well. Not only people who can support you, like your close people, your close friends, your close family members, but you need people who are doing the things that you want to be doing to not only guide you, but to aid you in your journey as well. Because a lot of these folks that I was talking to in these groups, they've helped me take actionable steps or the right steps to actually make it out of the situation, right? And so, again, I just could not be more grateful for the people that have been around at this time and just really helped me kind of dig myself out of the hole, right? So that's kind of the story. Um, try to say to you guys the nuances, right? But that's kind of the grand scheme of things. It was a lot of stress. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars lost. And, you know, that's okay. And that's the last point that I want to make. Whatever you're going through, or if you're going through something, or if you just went through something, or shoot, if you start to go through something in the near future, right? I want you to remember that it is okay. You are human. I had to remind myself of that because I hold myself to an extremely high standard. Like, there have been very few times that I've ever been satisfied with myself in my entire life because I hold myself to such a high standard, right? But you have to you have to keep telling yourself and you remind yourself, I am human. I will go through things. And that was another mistake that I made, especially like making like a lot of money and being successful, having all these different team members. I'm yawning like crazy today. But it's really easy to get caught up in all the good and all the things that are going right, right? And not understanding that or telling yourself or even let alone reminding yourself, hey, shit can go south really quick, you know? Nothing is guaranteed and nothing is promised. I have this new saying that everything is temporary. The bottom's temporary and the top is temporary. So if you can kind of live in this neutral zone of not getting overly caught up in all the hype and all when everything's going great, but you can also peel back and when, things aren't going the greatest, you can remind yourself, dude, this is temporary. I'm going to make it out of this. I will see the other side. I will see the light. I will get back to where I was and even better and surpass where I was. See, that's my new mindset is that there were lessons that I had to learn. And I know that's so cliche and that is so tough. Trust me, that is the toughest thing to understand when things are going just south as ever and things are just like really, really, really not going your way. Man, not only is it frustrating when people are like, and I do this to people too, where they're like, what lessons can you learn? Because I say the same thing to people too, like, oh, there's a lesson to be learned. But man, in the moment, I tell you, it is so tough, dude. It is so tough to sit there and think to yourself, huh, what can I learn from this situation that's just absolutely garbage right now? And I had to sit there with myself and ask that to myself every single day for weeks, weeks, dude. I had to ask myself, why am I going through this? What am I supposed to learn from this? I do not I don't understand, honestly. And so the lessons that I learned is don't get caught up or too caught up. You can enjoy the moment and enjoy your success, but do not get too caught up. Keep your foot on the gas. Keep getting after it, right? Second thing that you always got to keep a positive mindset and continue to put in the work. And last but not least, just keep moving forward. Put one foot in front of the other, take consistent action. Now, that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. As always, if you want to hear any guests specifically, go ahead and reach out. I appreciate y'all listening, and we'll catch y'all next week.